All right, ladies and gentlemen, rock and rollers, welcome back to the Thirsty Deer Studio, your home for rock and roll on YouTube. And it is September 24th in the year of our Lord 2025, and we're in the studio tonight. That was the newest single, Reckless Abandon. I hope you dug that. That shit rocks, in my humble, honest opinion. And we just put that out last week. And we're already balls deep into another production. And I want to look a little bit at this new production that we've just started on. We've got some guitars laid down, some synths, and some bass. I got a really killer bass sound on this that I want to just go over how I do it, because it's a simple thing. Just using minimal gear, but using some plugins, some EQs, stuff to get a killer sound. Let me say right off the jump, right at the start here, do the housekeeping things. Because I've been streaming so much and working on so many projects, getting out music, doing the damn thing, putting out music, which is what I think is the most important part of being a musician. It's either making music in your studio and putting out music, or playing live, or both. Bringing that music to people in some way is the most important thing we do as musicians, saying what we feel, what's on our minds. And so let me just say that I've been doing all this, and it takes up a lot of time. I haven't put out nearly as many regular YouTube videos, the kind that you video edit after you record them. I've been doing a lot of live streams, and I've been making this music, which I'm always doing, but the workflow has taken me to the live streams now more than the standard YouTube videos that you aren't live. So do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're into music, into rock and roll especially, or into music production or video production, or any of these things, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because that's what we do here. And I've been doing, on average, 3 streams a week. Last week, I only got 2 streams out, but we're being pretty consistent on the live streaming. And just for right now, the regular videos are taking a backseat. I did put out that music video that you just saw as a regular YouTube video as well. But it's been a crazy world. On the last live stream, we talked, about everything. And if you have any questions in the chat about anything, not just music, we'll talk about it. So be sure, if you're watching live, to leave me a comment in the chat or ask me a question. I really would like to get more interaction going on these live streams. People watch them later. That's fine too. It's really cool though when we can interact live and talk about things with music production, or talk about things in our personal lives, or whatever it may be. I'm just outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and last week we had a huge rock festival, the biggest rock festival in the world, Louder Than Life, right? And by all accounts, it was pretty crazy. I've never been to... So what they do in Louisville, there's 2 weekends in a row that there's festivals. The first one, it has been the first one. I think next year they're going to reverse the order, but usually it's Bourbon and Beyond, and then Louder in Life. And usually Bourbon and Beyond is more like traditional rock. Like the year I went, there was Pearl Jam and St. Vincent and just a bunch of bands, but more in that those kind of genres, less straight up metal or really heavy music. And Louder Than Life is usually more on the heavier side, which is cool too. I think at Louder Than Life there was Stone Temple Pilots, Marilyn Manson. These are the bands that I like the most, because they were more of my time when I was a teenager in the 90s. I love STP. I saw STP 3 times with Scott, so I didn't really feel like I needed to go see him with Jeff, the new lead singer. But just killer shows for a 4 day festival. For me, like when I do festivals, usually I'll go to one day of the festival because just 4 days of music, while cool, it kicks my ass, and I really don't like to be away from home that long. Uh, I make music here in this studio, and it's I do it all the time. I love being in here doing this. That's why it's no problem to turn on the camera and do these live streams and show you what I'm working on in the studio. Um, I'm a single dad. My son is back there asleep right now. He knows he's always around this music, and hopefully that's wearing off on him. He likes to get behind the drums. He likes to mess with the synthesizers. He's a little bit young. He's 5 to be playing guitar, but he likes to mess with the tuners and untune things for me and hit the strings, things like this. So that's what I love to do. It's been a rainy week in Louisville, very rainy. I saw some crazy shit this morning. I was going to work. I work at GE, by the way. I make dishwashers. That's my day job. And my job that I'm passionate about is doing this, and I treat it like that. I'm always in here doing work. I have a workflow in the studio, and that's what it is. It's a workflow because I make music. A lot of people talk about gear and post their gear, but I don't hear them making much music with it. Maybe they are, but there's some folks that seem more like gear collectors. I'm sort of a gear collector. I love gear. I have great gear in the studio. Not as much as some people, but what I have is like top notch, and I'm passionate about it, but I wouldn't say that it's to build a collection for a collection's sake. I collect the gear so I can get the best sounding music I can have, right? And you hear there that the music sounds good, it's on point. What we do, you're never going to please everybody all the time, but people, if you make good quality music and your sounds are good and your sounds are cool, and mostly if you're saying something, if you're speaking from your heart and you're talking about your life experiences or where your head's at the time, that's what's going to connect with people the most, right? That's why, when I first started out in the studio, I was just building instrumental tracks. And that was cool, while I was learning in the studio how to do things. Building instrumental tracks was cool. I like to play all the instruments myself, but I really very quickly felt like I wasn't saying everything that needed to be said just with instrumental tracks. And so it wasn't long at all before I started learning how to record and mix vocals and get that side of it down. And that's a whole different thing. If you've just been doing instrumental recordings, that's an art in itself. And then doing vocals, I feel like, is almost a separate thing in a mix. It's different processing that you use. It's different ways to record, a different way to record. Like when I'm recording guitars, most of the time it's just a microphone on the amp going into a good mic preamp going into the interface. Well, when I'm doing vocals, it's always hitting an outboard compressor first. So it's microphone, usually this microphone, going into a Neve style preamp, a BAE preamp, then going into a compressor, an 1176, and then going into the DAW. So right off the top there, it's an extra piece of gear in the chain. And then when you're mixing the vocals, you're doing other things too. Like if you want the vocals to sound wide, some micro pitch shifting is going to help you do this. And your reverbs on your vocals a lot of times are not going to be like your guitar amp reverbs. It's going to be a different thing. You can put reverbs on sins in the guitar, on the in the mix on guitars as well. But a lot of times the amp reverb is what we're going for, or a reverb pedal, and you're using a different kind of reverb or delay on the vocals. It's just a whole different thing that you have to do, getting the levels right, clip gaining your vocals and comping them, and if you're tuning them, that's a different thing. I try not to tune. We usually, the last two songs I don't think I did any tuning on, but up until that point, all the vocals at least had one phrase tuned in them, just because, you know, if you have a great vocal, but you hit one wrong note, you don't want to go back and redo the whole vocal, or, you know, change the energy of the vocal, just because you hit one wrong note. Because if you go back and you try and punch in, maybe you'll have the same energy, maybe you won't. It doesn't hurt to try. But if it's just one note that you're missing, why not go ahead and tune that? Something I don't do is tune all the vocals, right? It's too, I don't like it. It's too manufactured for me. And I feel like when you're tuning everything, you're losing some of the emotion from the voice. And even if you're not a great singer, you can put swag into your vocals, you can put feeling into your vocals, you can put emotion into your vocals, and not be the greatest singer in the world. Not be Adele or, Freddie Mercury. You don't have to be these things to convey emotion in your songs, right? So we started this live stream a little bit early tonight. Usually I like to start right on time, but I was so pumped to get this thing rolling tonight. It's been a few days since I did the last live stream, and I just wanted to get things rolling. Maybe YouTube won't push this thing out at all and I won't get any viewers, but I like to have that interaction on the videos, on the live streams. So if you happen to join the live stream, leave me something in the chat, ask me anything. I'm getting ready to pull up this track that I've been working on. You heard the track that just got released last week at the top of the video. So if you missed that, go back later and listen to the track that was the intro for the live stream. And I'll play another track. I just did some repackaging of an older track, and I'm going to play that one on the outro. So that one's called Streets in the Dark. But let me pull up the screen, and I'll put me down in the corner, and I'll play you this new thing I'm working on. It's just some guitar tracks, one synth track, and bass. But it's the foundation for the song. We're doing some arrangement on it. I might do some arrangement things here tonight so you can see how I think about building a track, right? So let me pull up the Ableton session real quick for you. It's right here. And I'll put me down in the corner so you can see that as well. Okay, so down here, what I've got going on is a synth track, and up above, I have a few guitars, and up here in the purple is the bass track, right? So there's one mono guitar part, which is this brown one down here. The rest are stereo guitar parts, not true stereo, but one guitar on the left and one guitar on the right. And so let's listen to what we've got going for this new song here. I'll just let it play till it gets done. We're at about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, so some of these parts are gonna repeat themselves throughout the track. I'm in a good place with this music, and there's definitely a lot that needs to be added, but I feel like it's a good foundation, so let's listen to it. All right, so you can hear there that it's pretty bare bones, you know, just uh pretty fresh into it. We are, right? We're pretty, like, we just tracked the guitars, got some got a basic sketch of what we want the track to do. Um at the beginning, I did have some plugins off, like, let me pull it up so I can show you. About halfway through that, I turned on this Better Maker EQ, which is like a Pultec plugin. It's got like a Pultec side and a side with more parametric. So this is your parametric EQ over here, and this is more like a Pultec on this side. Um, and so I had that plugin off because it's a little bit CPU intensive, not too much. Also, I didn't ever turn it on, but I always use a tape emulation on the master bus, which is the UAD, the oh, it's this one, the UAD, like Ampex tape machine, right? And I never did turn that on, so you didn't really hear it. The other plugin I turn on halfway through is this Analog Design black box, and it's great on the mix bus to just give you a little bit of energy, right? A little bit more energy. It sounds great. It's something that you want to go really light on. Uh, so mix it in, like, on this output. I don't have a lot of output going through it. Um, it's just doing a little bit to add some energy to the track. And these are things that I mix through as I'm tracking. I'm also mixing the whole time, so it's not a big mix at the end. I've got a similar process that I do on most of my music, and that also involves going out through the Chandler TG2 mic preamps, and putting the full mix through a stereo pair of preamps, right? So you're getting the stereo mix, getting that transformer saturation, as well as this Analog Designs black box on the full mix. And it's just, something that, really just adds a little bit of power. And going through the TG2s really opens things up and puts some dynamics back in that you can kind of lose with digital. Things can get a little bit harsh with digital. And it feels more like the old time records that I grew up on, when just putting it back through one piece of analog gear. Um, it really, you can't hardly describe how much it does. People that don't have any analog gear don't really know what they're missing. I don't feel like it's subtle when you use it on individual tracks, but nobody uses it on individual tracks. Even if you just have a good mic preamp, you're putting that thing on every track, and then if you have a pair, you're going back with the mix. If you care about your music and are willing to take the time to do it right, everything's going through that pair of preamps again, sometimes multiple times on the buses. I've talked a lot about this before. So you can run your drums back through it on the 2 bus, print that, run your guitar bus back through it, like in stereo, print that. You can then run the output of your full mix back through the analog gear, print that, on the final export of the song. So we try and get a lot of analog flavor because it always adds something to the mix that we just can't get any other way with plugins or something. So you can tell, like, I hadn't started on this song yet when I put that other song out last week. And then after I put it out, like, I don't dwell on my music, as artists, we're just trying to move on to the next thing and keep working, right? You just want to keep putting stuff out because, it's that creative spark that it's like you got to feed it, almost like an addiction is how I feel about making music. It's what I love to do. And I'm a person who knows a little bit about addictions as well. So it's the thing where it's like, I got to keep moving and I got to keep doing this thing. And that's how you get better, is to just do it. That's how I got better with the YouTube videos. It's how I learned how to stream. You just got to jump in and do these things, right? And, I feel like at all types of levels, people are just trying to say things that don't matter. Just saying whatever bullshit pops into their head many times. And so if you have something legitimate to say it. Don't be shy about it. And you know, if you're a musician, you know how to play anything. I know how to play everything in a rock band context. All those instruments. So I work in a way that's like overdubbing, right? I build my tracks with overdubbing, but I use room mics on drums. If you look down here, that last guitar part here, I'll play a little bit of it. This brown track right here. That. So that is everything else was done through my vintage Fender Twin amp, 67 Twin Reverb. That was my Les Paul into my Trimoverb dual rectifier, right? So it's a big dual rectifier, 4x12 cab. I've done a lot of videos on that amp. I got that amp in the 90s. It was my first amp, first good amp, first amp, period. It's killer, and it's definitely, that's no guitar pedals. And if you look down here to this brown track below it, so these two tracks, that's not another guitar. That is a room mic, right? So let's just listen to the room mic. And bring in the other track. You can hear there, it's missing something when it doesn't have that room mic in on the right side. So what I did there is I panned the amplifier to the left, and I panned the room mic to the right. So that's kind of a similar thing to like what Eddie Van Halen would do, except they would pan his reverb to the other side, right? I did it with the room mic. It's not something I do a lot on guitars, but I do get a lot of room sounds with my guitars, and you don't always have to do that. You can add reverbs after the fact, or you can use reverbs on your amp or guitar pedals. But I feel like when you use room mics, and all I did was use the back side of my Royer R10, which is actually a brighter side, and I flipped the phase on the mic preamp. I even left it where it was on the other cabinet, but it's at about the right spot because it was on the other guitar cabinet. Across the room, though, I guess that's about 25 feet away, maybe. Probably about 20 feet away from the amp that room mic is. So, and it's actually the opposite of the way I'm sitting. Like, the dual rectifier is on my right side, and that is on my left side. And it's actually the opposite of the way I have it panned in the mix. But if I was standing behind the amps, like playing out towards that way, like you would be on a stage, that would be the correct way. So it's all about getting like a vision for how you want things to sound. And don't do it all artificially, right? Try to make those sounds with what you have and with those microphones. And if you want a live feel, or like how it would sound if you're going for how it would sound in a big studio, or how it would sound live. Like if you're tracking a live band, definitely use a lot of room mics. I always have a pair of small diaphragm condensers up for room mics on the drums. I always have overheads up. I'm also gonna start putting up a mono room mic out in the room, and I'm gonna put one. There's a fireplace back there. I want to experiment with putting just like a dynamic mic in that fireplace behind the drum kit. First start out with it on drums, but also try it on everything. And every time I've experimented with getting new sounds by putting up new mics or by running it through extra outboard gear or by doing some extra processing or especially with bouncing tracks down from two tracks to a single track or bouncing them down with the plugins on and then not having to have the plugins on while I'm working or while I'm mixing, having that baked in. All these kind of things, like the Beatles recorded Sgt. Pepper's on 4 tracks, a 4-track tape machine. They had more tracks on the desk, but they were recording down to 4 tracks. And that's just amazing when you hear that music, right? Strawberry Fields Forever, A Little Help from My Friends, you know, For the Benefit of Mr. Clyde. All these songs that are on that record have so much going on. A Day in the Life, I think that's on that one. Seems like it is. It's been a while since I've listened to it, but yeah, I think Day in the Life's on that. That's John Lennon at his absolute creative peak in the studio, doing just crazy shit. They all were, you know, and they had George Martin. They would have the ideas, give them to George Martin, and George Martin would make them happen. So there's probably 20 tracks bust down to those 4 on that song, right? There's so much going on those songs, especially like Strawberry Fields and A Day in the Life. There's just so much going on those songs. And even though we have unlimited tracks to use, sometimes you can get cool things bussing down with plugins on, or, you know, things get processed in slightly a different way too when you bust them down and you know, get the processing baked in the track from the aux sends. The gain staging is different going into the master bus, or like if you bust down those sends or put the reverbs and delays actually on the track, it's definitely a hitting like your SSL bus compressor or your master, you know, your 2-bus limiter. It's hitting all these things different, and it gives a different sound. And I feel like all the things that we have to do with busing or bouncing things down that you don't have to do now, but that I do, like committing to sounds, is going to give you more of an old school flavor. So that's what I like. You know what I mean? Those are the sounds that I know. And it's important. Like, let's listen to this bass. One thing I wanted to talk about on this was definitely this bass guitar. Because I record bass DI, and since I've gotten my 1176 compressor, this is a real outboard hardware compressor, I always usually track bass through that now. Because it really makes things even. You can look at the track here. You can look all the way across this bass track. You can see I've done a little bit of editing right there, or quite a bit of editing, just making things line up perfectly with the tracks. Because if you look down here, you can see that this is a new thing that I've been doing, because I usually always left the warp mode on. Even though I didn't warp, I would cut the tracks and not stretch the sounds, because I don't like doing that. I'd rather make the cuts like on old analog tape. But it occurred to me quite recently that just having warp mode on is a different sound than what you've actually recorded. Just having the ability to warp can potentially change things, because it's another process. So if you look at every track for this song, I've recently, well, actually, this one, I guess I forgot to shut the warp mode off, but we'll do that now. I've started recording. I'm not sure if you can, I thought I had warp mode shut off, like on my preferences in Ableton, but when I started recording in, the way I thought I had it turned off, it wasn't actually turned off. I think it was just turning off. So these are off already. Well, the actual guitar track was, but the broom mic wasn't. It's still on warp mode. So we're shutting off all the warp mode because this is the new way I'm recording. It has been for the last project or two, because I really feel like the warp, just having that warp mode on can fuck with how things are sounding. Um, just even if you're not doing any processing, any stretching of time, I want the warp mode off. And I do a lot of things too where, like, I'll take all of the music except for the drums when I'm getting ready to track drums, and I'll make a 2-bus mix and then put that on a new track to track drums to, because even when I'm direct monitoring with no plugins on, I'll still have CPU spikes in the computer that cause my drum tracks to be a little bit rushed. They'll actually go in before the music on the DAW. And what's happening is CPU spikes, even though I use this computer for very little. It's a studio computer, but something is happening with the internet, with something with the CPU to make the drum tracks have latency, right? So they'll be usually brushed before the music. It's causing the music to actually be late with my drums, and it'll vary as the CPU spikes in the computer hit. So the only way you can combat these things is to shut off all the plugins, shut off everything, and it helps if you don't have all the plugins running for your mix. So go ahead and export a mix. I have a separate template where I can just record drums on it and a single track for, the rest of the music. So usually I record guitars, synths, bass, sometimes a little bit of percussion, and then the drums go on is my usual workflow. Then after that, we put the guitars, right? And so it's a real, it's just the process I've gotten to with time. And, it's like everybody has their own thing. I hope I'm not fucking boring you to death, But it's a music channel, and I want to, I wish somebody, it is how I learned. I learned from watching people, and the music speaks for itself. The music I make sounds great. So if you dig what I do, I can show you how to do it, right? And that's just another thing that took time to learn, that I needed to track drums on a new template, on a, track drums by themselves to the stereo 2-bus mix, not the mix with, it's basically like a stem mix with everything, and not have everything running through plugins, like 20 tracks of guitars and synths and bass, all those plugins on while I'm trying to track guitars. Because even if you go through and shut them all off, you get more latency that way than you do with just a single music track tracking drums to it. And then after I record those drums, I'll take that template and those drum parts that I recorded and import them back into the, not stemmed out parts, just the all the individual tracks, the multi-track, right? Not the 2-bus mix. I'll take it back off that 2-bus mix and put it back into like what you're seeing here, with all the multi-tracks. And that, sometimes I always have to do some editing because I still get those CPU spikes at times. And that's with drums. So we've talked about doing vocals. We've talked about doing drums. Let me just solo up this bass. I don't like to listen to things in solo a lot, but this is a DI bass. That's how I usually record it. I've got what's a pretty good sounding bass amp here. This old Fender Twin with the JBL in it. It'll do a cool, great clean bass sound. But I like doing the DI, and then let's look at these plugins that I use to shape the sound. So I'm going through a Pool Tech first. I've got some other plugins up here that I'm not using, like a decapitator if I want to get more crunch. But I really got a lot of crunch out of this. I had my BAE 1073 really cranked, and then I was pulling that back with the 1176. And then actually, because I had the mics, and because I had the DI and mic preamps set up this way for the live stream, I just left it like this. I actually went 1073 into 1176 compressor back into Chandler mic preamp, because that's how I had things set up on the stream. And I thought, well, shit, going back into another mic preamp after the compressor could be cool, because I could really mess with the saturation and the harmonics on that last piece of the puzzle, that Chandler mic preamp. So I was really getting quite a bit of harmonics out of this bass tone. It doesn't sound really dirty, but there's a lot of harmonics going in there, and there was a lot of gain coming into each individual piece of the chain of the gain staging. So I just hit this warm bass DI, preset on the UA Pool Tech plugin, and I never usually leave presets the way they are as you load them. So I rolled back this output a little bit. I increased the bandwidth on this DI preset all the way to broad, fully broad, because broad on a Pool Tech kind of is where it's at most of the time. If you boost and attenuate a little bit too, that makes your curve like dip down before it boosts, right? That's what attenuate. If you boost and attenuate the same signal, you get this like dip right before it boosts way up, and it's a cool sound. It's almost like adding a parametric EQ with a narrow Q right before that boost. And then coming straight out of that Pool Tech, I went into a SSL Waves channel. So what I'm doing here is high passing at 61. I've got a bell curve boosting 4 dB at 6.3. And then I'm boosting 0.77 hertz, so 770 hertz, 3.6 dB, wide Q, right? Broad Q. And then here, so I've got another big boost, 10 dB at 7 hertz. That shows you right there, I'm almost boosting the same frequency twice. One with the broad Q, one with the narrow Q. I'm just going by my ear, right? Many times I'm not looking too much at what these EQs are doing. I'm also boosting 100 hertz, 12 dB, and then I've got the input and output gain staging at 0. And then I'm doing a little bit more compression, like 4:1. The threshold's at -7.9, -8. And then I'm doing some gating on there as well. I think I did have it on expander, where, it's using these same controls but shutting off the gate, and it works like an expander. But for some reason I turned it back to gate, so I must have liked the way that was hitting. Sometimes a gate will make things feel like they're hitting harder if you use it right. And then, so that's all with the plugins. Also, down here will sometimes use this Brainworks subharmonic synthesizer. It's cool if you want that really hard hitting low end. It kind of generates frequencies for you. It's a cool plugin. Let me show you what that looks like. So you can roll in your harmonics. Like, this is basically a mix knob down. Well, that's just bringing in your harmonics. This is a mix knob over here. I just have this pulled up like in the template. I don't have anything set on it. I tweak that if I decide I want to use it. But let's listen to the bass. love that, man. See, what's important in this to me, um, where my head was at tracking all of this, was leave plenty of space, right? And I'm gonna add like some ad lib guitar parts throughout here as well. But I might wait till the very end to do that to kind of shape them around the vocal. I might go ahead and put some in, but leave myself the option of taking those back out or muting, coming in and out around the vocal. I really, since I've gotten into this and feel like, I've gotten pretty damn good at this, space means a lot in the mix. A whole lot. Because, for one, you want to leave space for the vocals, but also things like the room mics, having space that way, and just a lot of times in music, it's the stuff you don't play. It creates that suspense and that, like, wait for it, like that breath, that inhale before it hits. And the more places you can create space, I think that may add, I think it definitely adds more to the music than 100 notes in 30 seconds. I think it's very important. It's just the way I'm working now. And I feel like it's taken me a little time to get here. Like, I used to think I needed to have a pad under everything, synths going, even if you didn't hardly hear them, just for the feel. And sometimes that is a good thing as long as it's still leaving space. These things are like just kind of like things that you get with time, with mixing and making music and recording and finding out what works and what doesn't. Space is a good thing, and you don't know that until you know it and learn it. And it comes with time. It's an important thing. And it automatically builds in a pocket for the vocal or for different things you can highlight throughout the song. You can bring up different percussion on faders, or add an effect to the synth and bring that up just for a small section. Add these little features to the music, and it's important. And it really, like, especially the way things are now, where people don't listen to a complete record anymore, and they don't stay on their song that they're listening to on streaming past the chorus or the part they like. People have short attention spans now. They probably always have. I've had ADD my whole life, but I've always been able to listen to records, and I've always preferred to listen to records. That's where my ADD, where I feel like it's an asset to me, because even though I have a hard time still, even though I've had it my whole life, I have to make myself concentrate on things when it's something that I'm genuinely interested in, like music. I'm hyper focused on that. So it's almost like a reverse attention deficit, right? And that's the way my mind works. And I have like all the signs of attention deficit. I've taken tests in the past, and like it was supposed to be if you have 5 of these 20 things, you have attention deficit. Well, I'd have all 20 on every test that I took, but I still am hyper focused on music, right? So doing these things, adding these features in for people that aren't hyper focused on music, for people that are just there to get a quick fix, right, off their music, then for those people, they need those features. And for everybody, you want to hear cool things coming in. That's what's great about like Pink Floyd, like Time or Money, hearing that cash register at the beginning, all the little different things that, like, also if you listen to these remasters of classic albums, many times you can hear things that you never could hear on the original with these remasters where they've pulled other things out of the music. And most of the time I like the originals better because that's the way I'm used to hearing the music, but it's still cool to hear those things that were recorded but are somewhere buried in the mix that you don't really hear until they get pulled up for a remix or for Atmos or for something, you know. I don't guess they can pull from a stereo track like an old master for Atmos, but I know people are folding down stereo mixes, you know, just off of the Atmos mix. They're folding them down to stereo mix to have both platforms. And, you know, I'm not too interested in Atmos, but there are people that are. I'm kind of everywhere with that, but the point is, you want to have space in the music, and you want to be able to pull in little featured sounds, right? Little featured reverbs and delays and synth parts and little tweaks that you do to the vocal. Maybe a repeat on the vocal, or like a filter effect on the vocal that you wouldn't really be able to hear if it was too busy. Alright, I started the live stream a little bit early tonight. I started about 5 minutes early because I was hyped to get in here and listen to this new music and just give you a first little preview and listen. I didn't even pick up the guitar tonight. I had everything ready in case I wanted to, but I want to send you all off with a let me pull this up back correctly so I'm on the screen. But I want to send you all off with another song as we roll out. So hang on just a moment and I'll get you a song. So I recently just changed the packaging on this that is at the streaming services because I wanted a new album cover for this for a while, and it's very cool. It has a very cool look to it now, and it's a song that I dig. It's got a really cool thing that I did with the rat pedal after the fact. So in post, I ran the guitars back through a rat pedal to get this really, really nasty sounding guitar that you're going to hear in the intro and all through the mix. So I'll be back with another live stream real soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit like, leave me a comment. Next time, if you come back for another live stream, get in the chat, comment, you know, talk to me. If you have any questions about music or about me, or I'd love to hear about how you guys work. Do you play gigs? What's the name of your band? You know, tell me about yourself. I want to get some interaction going on this channel, on these live streams in particular. So this song is called Streets in the Dark. So if you go onto any streaming service, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, Spotify, you know, Amazon Prime, and type in Thirsty Deer, Streets in the Dark, this is what's going to come up, and I'll say goodnight. See you on the next one, which will be real soon. We're going to keep working on this music, and maybe who knows what the next live stream will be about, but it's going to be about music in some way. Good night, y'all. Here we go. Streets in the Dark. And you'll get the video with this so you can watch me tracking this song as well.